Yep, I think that's going.
Good to go. Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So, again, thanks everyone for jumping on board. We'll have a wide range of different levels of experience within umpiring. So, Alex at different points might call on some coaches. I saw Peter McKenzie in there. We've got some of our rums as well. So, Alex, feel free to sort of call on the group at any time, mate. But the show is yours.
Beautiful. Yeah, so I want to try and make tonight as engaging as possible. So I'm going to be asking lots of questions back to the group because I've found from experience the best learning comes from what other people have to say sometimes. So I'll be asking a lot of questions, and I'd like quite a interactive component from everyone else. Type in the chat box, answer the questions, and then we can sort of develop a bit of a discussion around that. Thank you all for jumping on too. I know everyone is busy, including myself, but stuff like this can be really important and be really beneficial for everybody. So thanks, guys. So tonight we're going to be going through the foundations of the two-umpire system, as well as some positioning stuff. So we've sort of decided that is a great way to start. A lot of people here may know a lot about some of the stuff we'll deliver tonight. So if you have anything to add, jump in the chat box. That'll be quite helpful. And we're moving throughout the weeks and throughout the sessions, we'll sort of move into more specific free kicks. So stuff like holding the ball, high tackle, dangerous tackles. We'll sort of go into more detail about how to identify them and make the right decisions. But tonight we're going to be going through the basics of two umpiring, and we're going to be going through some of the positioning stuff that can make our job a lot easier when we're out on the field. So I will move over to our PowerPoint that we got. Beautiful. I hope everyone can see that.
All good.
Grab the chat box up so I can see. Everyone can hear me all right? Just type in the chat if you can hear me all right.
All good.
Alrighty. So, two umpire system. Why do we umpire with two people instead of one? What's some advantages that we get out of having a second umpire on the field as opposed to doing it all ourselves? If anyone's got anything to add, chuck it in the chat box. I'd like some answers on that one. Less work, definitely. Two sets of eyes, yep. And two sets of eyes looking behind the play, correct? And they are so important because we're only human. We can only see what's in front of us. So having that ability to have a second angle on the contest is very important. The same as while we run three umpires as well. That way we can have a third angle. Being in a good position, correct? It's really hard to make a good call if you're not in the right position. All right, we're going a bit far. All right. So we go with two umpires, it's better than one. So higher standard of footy moves a lot quicker. Being able to get into a position when the footy's moving fast on your own can be quite difficult. As you move up to different levels of football, faster moving footy and older age groups, they kick and handball a lot further, which can also make it difficult to get into that spot. So when we've got that second umpire there, it makes it a lot easier for us to get in that right spot, get in the right position, and then we can make the right free kick, make the right call on the contest. So when we bring another umpire into the ground, how do we know who's in control? What do we use with our communication skills to determine who's in control? If anyone can answer that one for me. Yep, shout out. Use your voice. Use your communication. Loud voice, loud, clear voice. Tapping, so hand signals. So either tapping mine or tapping yours to hand over. What's important to know when we've got two umpires on the field? What's important to decide who's in control? Why is it important to decide who's in control? Same as if you've got 3 people in the field, why do we need to know who's in control? Mixing calls so you don't get confused. Yep, great one. So we always want to have every umpire on the field umpiring at all times. That's our goal. There's no use being out there as a second umpire if you're not going to be umpiring. But we don't want to be having double whistles. We don't want someone knowing who's in control. Someone not knowing who's in control. And it's even worse if no one knows who's in control. So having that clear communication by loud, strong voice and signals gives us that ability to identify if we're in control or if our other field umpire's in control. Down the bottom here, we've got you're never allowed to steal control from the other umpire. That's very important. We always only ever hand over. Yeah, as Cooper said there, don't take control. Exactly. We only ever hand over. We don't ever take control. Reason for that is because the other field umpire could be in a different position, and that when they're in the middle of umpiring, it can be very off-putting if someone takes control off you, and it can make it quite difficult to sort of know what's going on between the two of you. So a bit of positioning with our 2 umpires. We use a term called the major axis. Does anyone know what the major axis of the field is? Yep, goal to goal, perfect. So if you draw a line from the outside behind post all the way to the ones in the other end of the field, that's our major axis. And that's where we want to stay as a 2 umpire system as much as possible. I've heard it previously called tram tracks. It's another way you can put it. Railway lines, another one I've heard too. Any of them. So we use the term major axis because that is an easy way to sort of describe it. So if you ever want to talk about to other umpires your positioning in terms of being in the middle of the field, try and use that term, major axis, sort of eliminates any confusion. Reason of being in the middle is so we don't get stuck out near the boundary line. In the middle, it gives us the ability to move around. We can move around play, we can go to the back side of play, we can go to the front side of play. We're not going to get stuck out near the boundary line. If we get stuck near the boundary line, our vision closes. If our vision closes, we can start missing free kicks. So if we're in the middle of the field, how far away from play should we be? Twenty, 25 metres, beautiful. Good job, everyone. That gives us the ability to see what's going on with the play and what's going on outside and around play as well. If we're too far away from the football, it can be difficult to see what's going on. So if we're the second umpire, we don't have control. Why is it important for our other umpire to know where you are at all times? So if we're not in control, we're the supporting umpire, and our controlling umpire doesn't know where you were, what can happen from there? Yeah, handovers, exactly. So if our second umpire is on the wrong side, which can happen when you do things like cut throughs, if they're on the back side and you don't know where they are, you could be handing over the football and there's no one there. It can make it awfully confusing. Yep, from what you guys said, you don't get confused. It can make it awfully confusing if you think someone is where they are and they're not. So a good tip to that is just have a look around. Keep your focus on the play, but always understand where your second umpire is at all times. Who's heard of a string between umpires before? A string or a rubber band or an elastic band or something like that? Who's heard of it and what is it? Set distance to stay apart. Yep. Imaginary gut, correct. How far should that distance be? What distance between our two umpires should it be? 20 metres, 20 to 30, 15. We've got a bit of a range there, 10 to 15, 20, 25. So it really determines on what level of football you're umpiring. So for a handover, we want it to be a good kick. So we set up that distance between the two umpires about a kick away, but that will depend on what level of football you're umpiring. So junior footy, you're going to obviously be a lot closer. If you're doing senior football, you're going to be a lot further. There's no set distance, but what we need to ensure is as that second umpire, when the handover's coming, we need to make sure that we're at the drop of the football at all times. That gives us the ability to see any free kicks, pushing the back, holding, if it's a contested mark. And it always lets us get set and get ready for the next act of play. So if we're too close to our other umpire, we'll be seeing the front of the contest, and we might miss it pushing the back. If we're too far away, we'll be seeing the back of the contest and won't be seeing what's happening. So we always want to stay side on as the footy lands, and we want to make sure as that second umpire, we're setting up as at that sort of one kick away. So as a second umpire, when you don't have play, why is it important to keep paying attention? You're not in control anymore. Why can't you just have a rest? Why can't you just have a break? Watch behind play, correct? Off the ball incidents, yeah. Make calls the other umpire can't see, definitely. The other umpires miss something, and that happens quite a lot. If the player's moving away from an umpire, then you can see the backs of players, and that sometimes can make it very difficult to see what happens at the front. Player could get tackled and they could drop the football, and you might not see it. As a second umpire, if you're paying attention and you're the correct distance away, you'll have that second angle on the side of the contest, which will make it very important, and you can decide, well, not decide, but you can see what's happened. You can see if they've handballed it, you can see if they've dropped it, and then together you can make that the right call and the right free kick. So just quickly back to that string sort of whatever you want to call it. I like to call it more of a rubber band. Reason being, we don't want the rubber band to go slack. So when a player runs down the field, we want when the first umpire runs down the field, we want a second umpire to be following down as the kick goes downfield. The second umpire is not paying attention and they're not running hard enough to get up to the footy, it'll become stretched. And if they come too close, it'll go slack. If they're too close, we'll go back to that same problem with the kick turning around and coming back. Then you're out of position. If it becomes stretched, you might not be ready in case the footy comes back. You'll be too far. You'll be stuck behind play. So we want to keep it at that nice one kick distance, moving up and down the field as a team the whole game as much as you can. Really, it will get difficult as you start moving into the later minutes of the quarters and the later minutes of the game, but that's something that's very important. When the footy's moving down the field, so we've got continuous play, uncontested marks, and the footy's moving down the field. After there's a mark, and our second umpire and our in control umpire pays the mark, they're going to be moving down the field towards where the kick's going to be going. As our second umpire, what are we doing? Are we just going to stand there and watch, or what are we going to do as a second umpire when the footy's moving down the field? Push down to hold the mark, correct. Why? Why are we pushing down to take control of the mark? If there are other umpires already there, why do we need to move down too? So the other umpire can push up. That's it. So footy can move very, very quickly. And if we're being lazy as a supporting umpire, as a second umpire, what that can cause is our first umpire, our other umpire, to get caught out of play, and then we might miss a free kick. So as I said before, we always need an umpire side on at the drop of the ball at the contest. So if we're not pushing up as a support umpire to take control of that mark, our other umpire can't push down, and they won't be in that right position. So that's all sort of part and parcel of being that supporting umpire. You're supporting with calls, you're supporting with positioning, and when the play turns around and you're in control, it's up to the other umpire to then do the same for you. Makes everything easier. Makes everything easier and gives you the ability to get the right free kicks, which is what we're there for at the end of the day. Alrighty, so teamwork. When we're out in the field, whether it's 2 umpires or 3 umpires, or even including our boundaries and goals as well. Teamwork's very important. Communication is also very important because, like we spoke about before with the handovers, we know who's in control. Communication between boundary umpires. When they blow their whistle, they're not making a call. They're letting us know, they're communicating their decision to us as field umpires, so then we can make a decision. We've got down here about tapping, always making sure that you're so that's non-verbal communication. So you're tapping to say you're in control, hands down for a handover, as well as a loud voice, all parts of communication that are really important. Just went through that before about making sure we're a kick distance away as our supporting umpire. So don't feel bad if you're on control and our second umpire pays a free kick. There's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of times where you can't see what's going on. So don't feel bad. Don't lose your confidence. It's just all part of being in a group. That's why you're there. That's why you're there as a team. At the end of the day, we're there to make the right decision and make the right free kicks for the game. Don't stress about it. And go through it. Down the bottom here, go through it at the break. Ask them, oh, what was that for? Or say if you paid the free kick out of zone, say, hey, I saw this, just so they know what happened. They know what happened, then you can work together as a team. So that way, either if you're in control and you missed it because you weren't in the right position, you can sort of work on your positioning for the next quarter. Or if you're in the second umpire position, you can sort of work around. Maybe it's something that they need to work on. Maybe their high tackle interpretation isn't as good as it should be. So that's something that you can sort of focus on as a supporting umpire to give them help as well. That's just sort of a bit of an overview about why positioning is important and about why the 2 umpire system is important and far better than just running on your own. I don't know if a lot of people do umpire on their own that's here at the moment, but it's extremely difficult because to get to the drop of the football, you've got to be very fit, and sometimes it's just not possible. As an umpiring group, we don't ever want that to happen. We always want someone at every contest side on, hence why we bring in 2 umpires, and so we have 3 umpires as well. Want everyone to put down in the chat box what sort of football they umpire, what level of football they umpire, and how long they've been umpiring for. Sort of have a bit of a look as to what everyone's knowledges are in the game and what they do on the weekend. 2 years under 12s, 13s, 12s, 1 year. First season doing seniors, well done. 8 years juniors and seniors. Yeah, very good. We've got a great mix. It's good. So having lots of umpires like that have experience can really make things great for this group. So it might be a bit difficult when you're in your region, especially for regional Queensland, not having the ability to have older senior umpires to lean on. That can sometimes make it difficult. So sort of hence one of the reasons why we're trying to get this online stuff up and started to give everyone sort of that open space to talk about stuff and better each other. So let's move into a bit of positioning. Bit of two umpire positioning.
Before we do, Alex, has anyone got any questions about what Alex ran through that you might want to ask? Feel free to throw them in the chat.
Yeah, definitely.
I know I've got a few coaches online at the moment. If anyone has anything they wanted to add to what Alex has been talking about at all before we move into the positioning as well.
Yep. Right out there, no silly questions, and being able to have group conversations and have other people answer is what we want. So sure, we've got a few questions about that somewhere.
Looks like
Pretty good
Simon's
so
pretty
far.
happy.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yep, Simon's pretty happy. That's good.
Anyone want more information about being supporting umpire, about why two umpire system's important?
Stan, anything you wanted to add to the chat at the moment, being a rum down there at the Darling Downs? Peter Mack, I think I saw you on so far.
Just taking note of the decisions that you mostly call over the other umpire are ones where the player is in danger, like high contacts, pushing the backs, sling tackles, dangerous tackles, that kind of stuff. You had it in your next story, I saw that. Just there.
Yep, so protection of the ball player, free kicks, definitely. So we're not too focused as a supporting umpire on holding the ball free kicks or incorrect disposals. Our main focus is exactly what's written there: protection of the ball player. So high contacts, rough, dangerous tackles, tripping, all that sort of stuff. That's what we want, and also outside of play free kicks. So as a supporting umpire, we're not just focused on that contest. We're also looking at all the other players around the field, behind the other umpire, because sometimes things can happen behind them and they don't even realise.
Alex, question came through there from William. What's the major difference between 2 and 3 umpires?
So similar sort of process. We're still all working as a team and working together. As a 3 umpire system, we've got a mid-zone umpire and 2 end-zone umpires. How the 2 umpire system works with moving together with a string between you, we sort of incorporate a similar thing like that into a 3 umpire system with moving around together in a triangle. What that gives us is 3 different sides of play, 3 different angles on a contest as opposed to just 2. So that's sort of one of the main differences with it. Also, the 2 end zone umpires, when the footy's in the middle, the 2 end zone umpires are looking for those support free kicks around the outside of play, whereas their mid zone umpire is going to be doing most of the work, moving sort of between 40 and 45 out, all the way to 40 to 45 out of the other end. So it's a lot more running in the mid zone compared to the end zone, but the idea is to rotate through as quickly as possible so we don't burn each other out. And but yeah, like I said before, gives us that sort of 3 angles on a contest at all times, because more eyes on the footy gives us more of a chance to get the right free kicks. What else have we got, Sam?
I reckon that's it. A few notes. Stan's just chucked in for an end zone umpire can be the minor axis or working more towards the boundary than on the major axis, which might be a slight change between the 2 systems. So being on the short side or in the pocket rather than on the major axis.
Yep, definitely. Yep.
Opal's asked a question. What if your position gets in the play because you're trying to get into the middle? Good question.
Great question. Fantastic question. So when I first started talking, I said about how we're always umpiring when we're on the field, and that needs to hold true in every situation. So there is no point in time where your positioning is more important than your ability to umpire and your ability to see the free kick. So if you get stuck in a position where you're not in the middle of play, that's fine. You need to. It's difficult, but becoming comfortable with being outside of play, out near the boundary line, because sometimes it just keeps going straight at you. You ball it up, and the rucks punch it at you, and you can back out all the way to the boundary line. If you don't have an opportunity to get around to the side of play, that's fine. Just keep backing up. There will be an opportunity, whether it's a free kick, whether it's you do a ball up, or the footy gets kicked away. That's your opportunity to then trigger back inside of play, back to the middle where you started, and get going from there. But yeah, never try to get into a position because you think the positioning's right when it puts you in a bad position to call a free kick.
Awesome, mate. Feel free to fly over into the vision and the actual examples.
Yeah, all right. So we've got some examples now of positioning at sort of different situations, more of a practical thing, different situations around the field. We've got centre bounce, ball up. So we got number 1 there doing the ball up right in the middle. Number 2 standing off near the square. Why is he standing sort of more to the top of the square? Why isn't he in line with our first umpire? Different angle, correct. Might get in play, yeah, that's also correct in case it goes straight down the middle, but the main idea of why he's up there is so he's got the aim to the backside of that contest.
What kind of things would they be looking for as umpires? So what would be the focus point of that number 2? I see a few people talking about looking behind that umpire, so around the 50-meter arc and all that kind of stuff. What kind of things are we looking for?
Yeah, so around the 50, you'll have all of your forward and defence players, and you've out of contest free kicks is what that second umpire will be looking at. So things like holds is a big one. If you've got a really strong full forward, then there's a centre half forward. There's a good chance the centre half back might be holding. So keeping an eye on what's going on around there will sort of be able to give you that ability to pick up free kicks outside of the contest. And also a lot of people answered there, 666. So before we do that ball up, we've got to set that 666. So 6 in the middle and 6 at either end before we do that ball up. So that's what he'll be doing beforehand. But as play starts, his job is to look at the back of the contest, to look at holding, look at high tackles, high bumps, stuff like that behind the football. And then looking at players coming in from the wings, from the 50s to make sure there's no holding, there's no tripping, there's nothing like that. I'll go to the next one. Yeah, so if the wings are, what we got here? Yeah, so if the wingers are inside the square, that is the boundary umpires will be able to give that, tell us if they are inside or not. We still need to call that as a field umpire, so we still need to give the free kick away, but our priority is not watching those wingers. That's the boundaries will be doing that. Thanks, Tom, for clarifying that. We go to the next one.
Just on that point too, and Peter Max just called it out, without juniors having boundaries, that can sometimes become the responsibility of the field umpire. Great point, Pete.
Definitely. If you don't have any boundaries, definitely, then that's something that you're looking at as well. We now have a ball up, not a centre bounce. We've got a ball up, still in the middle of the field. And we've got our second umpire moving sort of behind where the first umpire is. Why would he be over there, not on the other side of play? So why wouldn't he be over sort of towards the wing? Because he'll get that other angle and be able to see the back of the play. Why wouldn't we be moving over there? Yeah, so we've got on the major axis, that's correct. So if we push outside towards the wing so we can get the second angle on play, it then puts us in a bad position if the football comes down to us. So we've always got to try to make sure that when we're umpiring in a two-umpire system, we're inside that major axis. And we can move across. So he's probably a little bit too far back. I'd be moving number 2 up a little bit closer so we can still see a bit of the backside of play. But he's also got to be ready to backpedal back to where he is if the footy comes down, because we don't want to be getting pushed out towards the boundary line. Anyone else have any comments on that one? So I know Harry's asked about a 3-umpire system. It will be a little bit different because we'll have the ball up where number 1 is. We'll have an end zone umpire roughly where number 2 is, but we'll also have a third umpire on the skinny side over towards the boundary. So he'll be seeing the backside of play. So that's how it can differ. Right, might move on to the next one then. So we've got another ball up in the middle of the field, but close to the wing. We've got number 2 in the middle of the field. Number 1's actually facing. There's a question. Is number 1 facing the right way? Can everyone see that? From that image, which way does that look like he's backing? No, he's not. Which way will he be backing out if he keeps going the way he's facing? To the boundary? What's wrong with that? Get caught in the fence, yeah. Why don't we want to be getting backed out to the boundary? Limits vision, yes. Yeah, so he's moved out of the major axis. When you move out of the major axis, you start getting pushed towards the boundary line. Your vision shrinks, and then you've got to try and get back inside of play. So if we have a ball up out towards the boundary, we want to be backing inside of play towards that major axis at all times. So we've got a second umpire there, supporting umpire. He's also facing backwards by the look of it. So don't face that way, face play. But he's there to see that second angle. He could also probably be a little bit closer towards the boundary line. He might be a little bit far over the field for it to be that far back. So we probably move sort of a bit closer to, not quite to the edge of the square, maybe about 10 metres off. That way he still has a good angle of the side of play that our number 1 umpire can't see. But he's also got the ability to run back if he needs to. He's not going to get trapped out on the boundary line. Anyone got any comments on that? So if our footy, we do a ball up, our footy gets kicked towards the left-hand side of the field, down towards the goals. Our number 1 umpire will follow it down to stay side on. Where's our number 2 umpire going to move to? What are the grey dudes? I think they're players. Yeah, they're the rucks. Where's our number 2 umpire going to move if our footy gets kicked down towards the goals? Move down with umpire 1, but other side of the contest, top of the 50. Yeah, so roughly about the top of the 50 arc will be where we need to be, but probably down a little bit, not to the edge of the square, but a little bit further down. That way we can still see that backside of play. if we're still in line with the goals, right in the middle of the field, the top of the 50, we might not have that side-on vision. We might not be able to see that second angle. But depending, of course, where the footy goes, moving a little bit down is okay, so long as you have the ability to get back inside and get back into the middle of the field. Go down to the next one, boundary throw-in. For the boundary throw-in, we've got number 1 in control. We've got number 2 standing out here. Who's happy with that? What do we think about all of that positioning with number 1 and number 2? So we'll say that the footy's landing, so the rucks are punching it right now. This is where our 2 umpires are. What do we think about the positioning for both of them? I'm thinking it looks pretty good to me. So we got number 2 has a good side angle on of the contest. As the footy hits the rucks, he's going to want to back out a little bit because he's awfully close to play there. But that's a pretty good spot to see a second angle of that contest. As number 1, he's probably a little bit too far forward. So if that football's hitting the ruck's hands there, he's probably a little bit too far forward. With a boundary throw-in, what we want to do is make sure we're just in front of the rucks when the contest hits, just in front of side on. So when the footy lands, we can still see the front of the ruck contest. And then as they punch it, as the ball moves around, obviously we'll be wrapping around as our first umpire. But in terms of support positioning, that's a pretty good spot for the second umpire. You wouldn't want to be any closer, but that's a good spot for where they are at the moment. Yeah, number 1 would have started closer to the boundary, correct. They would have started a bit closer to the boundary and then moved out. What are we watching as a support umpire there? In a boundary throw-in? What sort of stuff are we looking for that could happen around the contest? Holding, yep. Off the ball stuff, yep. Shepherds, correct, blocking. Ruck infringements, probably not. That'll be the responsibility of the first umpire. Whoever's in control will be mainly looking at the 2 rucks. Our second umpire will mainly be looking at the off-the-ball stuff and the other players around. The reason we're looking at the players around is because it can sometimes be very difficult for our controlling umpire there to see what's happening on this sort of left side of play. There's a lot of players around a ruck contest, and it's quite easy for his vision to get blocked. And so we've got that second umpire over on the side here. If he's side on, he's not going to be able to see what's happening around the side of play. So that's why he's positioned where he is. All right, let's go to the next one. Your boundary throw-in in the end zone. So we've got number 1 umpire, in control umpire, standing on the goal side of the throw-in. What do we think about that? And that's a good spot to be. Should it be on the other side? Should he be over here towards the fat side? What do we think about positioning? Why are we going to be on that side of play, not the other side? Yeah, so what Tom said there, don't need 2 sets of eyes on the same side, correct. So if we know we've got our second umpire on the left side of us, we set up on the left side of the contest, we're both on the same side. Every time we get a throw-in inside the end zone, near the goals, we always want to set up in front of the goals or on the goal side. So that'll be the skinny side. If we're on that side, that way we have the second side of the contest. We've got a different angle to where our supporting umpire is. The important thing, though, is to not loiter around. So as the footy gets thrown in, we don't want to stand around and take too long to move because we're going to be trapped right in the goal square, which is probably a really bad spot to be sometimes. The attacking team gets a footy, they're going to be kicking it straight at the goal square. So what we need to do is still set up on that side, keep an eye on the contest, but we need to trigger and work really hard to get around the back side of the contest so we're not in the goals when the footy lands. As our supporting umpire, we're not in the middle of the field. We're closer over to the edge of the square because we can see more of that back side and we still have plenty of room to back up if we need to. So for both of those, that's pretty good positioning. Yes, number one's a little bit far forward, but that's all pretty good. Anyone got anything to add on that? So as number one umpire with the throw-in, why are we wrapping around the back of play? Why don't we just stay there on the skinny side? We've got a good angle on the contest. Why do we need to wrap around the outside of play? So to get out of the way, yeah, why can't we sit over near the line, near the boundary line though, and just watch the front of the contest? Yeah, what Ben said, to get back on the major axis, correct. So we're always trying to work back into that major axis as a two-umpire system whenever we can. So that's why we're going to be wrapping around and we're going to be working really hard so we don't get caught. Because if the punch goes straight at us, we need to be on our bite to get back inside of play so we can have a good field of vision. We can see what's going on with the whole contest and what's around it. Good job. All right, what do we got next? Bring play in after a behind. We got the fullback kicking out. Got number one umpire in control. What's he doing there? What will he be doing? What's his job standing there? Yep, setting the mark. Good job, Hugo. So he'll be setting the mark and keeping an eye on the fullback. If he goes outside the square, calling play on. The second umpire in support, standing back on the 50 line. He looks like he's a bit in front of the 50, about 45 out. Why is he about 45 out? Why isn't he further down towards the middle of the field? Yeah, so he's there ready for the next contest. So as that football comes out, most of the time, they'll be kicking around that sort of 45-metre mark. So he'll be there right at the drop of the footy. He'll be side on, ready for the next contest. Why is he near the middle of the field? Why isn't he over towards like one side near one boundary line? Yeah, once again, staying on the major axis gives him the ability to move either way too. If you push out to one side, you don't know where the football's going. Yeah, what Chris has said, the kick could go either way. You don't know. So being in the middle gives you that ability to trigger either side. You'll be side on the contest. If it's a short kick, it's fine because we've got number one there. So if it only goes 20 metres out, or we've got a player down in the deep pocket here that he kicks to, our number one umpire will still take control, and our second umpire will be ready for the next active play still. All right, we've got a stoppage in the forward line. So we've got number one going to do a ball up. Well, it looks like he's going to do a ball up. We've got number two umpire sitting over the back here. Similar thing to if it's in the middle of play. We need that second angle on the contest. So that's why we've got that supporting umpire has pushed out. So he's right sort of on the edge or even a little bit further than that major axis, which is okay. When the footy's all the way down one end of the field, it's all right to be a little bit out because, as you can see, if play's here, it's hard to get another angle as the footy's more in the middle of the field, it's a lot easier to get a side angle on the contest. Sorry, not a side, a second angle on the contest. As it gets towards the goals, that ability narrows up. So as a supporting umpire, you've got to push out a little bit more so you can get that side on angle. There's also a lot more room. So we don't want to be pushing out that far in the middle of play. When the play's in the middle of the field, because it gives us more of a chance of getting stuck out on the boundary line. When the footy's down there, where we can be pretty confident that it's either going to go back up the wing, back across field, or back into goals. So we can push out if it goes back up to the wing. Cooper, yeah, if you got to go, mate, go for it. Positioning for a contest in the forward line. Why is this really, really important? Why is it super important being in the right position when there's a kick into a forward line? Where infringements happen, missing something could mean a goal. Exactly. So this is where it can be really important to find a free kick. When the kick's going into the forward line, there can be more free kicks. You can have a lot of people holding, you can have a lot of people shepherding, pushing the backs. If you've got two people jumping up for the mark, pushing the back can happen. We're not side on as number one, we're not going to see it. And it's as simple as that. If you don't see it, you're going to miss it, and it could very well mean the difference between them scoring a goal and them not. So this is side-on positioning as number one umpire here is extremely important. This is the ones that we want to nail all the time. So as our number two umpire, what's he looking at there? What's he looking at? Why isn't he looking down here where the footy is? Off the ball infringement, yep. What's that called? Does everyone know? What's it called when you don't turn around and look down to the footy? So it's called holding your vision. Holding your gaze, yep, good job, Ken. So as the kick goes, we don't want to watch the football in the air. We don't want to spin away straight away to look at the next contest, because a free kick after disposal can happen, especially when we've got a big kick down into a forward line. We know we've got our supporting umpire there. We know, our number one umpire there. We know he's there in position, side on, at the drop of the football. He will judge that contest. It's important for us to make sure there's no free kick beforehand when it gets kicked. So we're going to be holding our vision for about half a second to a second after that kick goes. We're going to be handing over, loud, clear communication, calling you, signalling, and then after we see that there's nothing there, then we're going to turn around and have a look at that second angle of that contest to see what's going on the front. I think this is what we got, positioning the deep forward line. I think this looks like the kick's coming out. Got any a set shot, yeah. So similar to before, if the kick's coming towards the goal at the end that we are, so he's nice and side on, watching that drop of the contest. If the foot is coming out, so we'll say this is the fullback about to kick out. Just got a question from Ben. I know what mine is, but what's the equivalent of yours? So are you talking about like handover seat? Yeah. Good. Thank you, Simon. Hands down to your sides, correct. So straight down next to your sides is the signal for yours. With your signal for mine too, if you're keeping play, so we're never, as we spoke about before, we're never saying mine to take play. We're only saying mine to keep play when we already have it. Make sure that we're tapping somewhere that our supporting umpire can see. If our supporting umpires on our left-hand side and we're tapping on our right, that's sort of useless. They can't see what's going on there. So always make sure that when you're tapping to say mine, or also for those that know a tap through, make sure you're tapping on the side that the other umpire can actually see. Quite beneficial. Yeah, so this looks like it's going towards this goal line here. So similarly to the one before, we've got a second umpire is looking at that contest before it gets kicked out. And we've got our first umpire looking at the side on the contest, and he's gone really deep to make sure he's still side on. Something that you can be caught out with is thinking that side on is always literally side on to the contest. So where he is now, if the footy's not moving, then that's okay. If the footy were to push over towards the right-hand side pocket, he wouldn't be side on there anymore. So as the play moves, we've got to make sure that we move and adjust as well. Because side on, we mean by being at 90 degrees to the direction of where the play's travelling. The play's moving out towards the pocket. We then need number one to be moving across the field at the same angle. That way he's still side on. Try not to get confused with that, because it's quite easy to think, I've got to be all the way down in the bottom of the pocket to be side on. But if the foot is going across the goals, side on isn't down in the bottom of the pocket. If it's going across the face of goals, side on is straight along the major axis running across field, isn't it? Good question from Hugo. How do you know when the right time to hand over is? So if we've got a good size kick, and it's so for whatever the grade is, there's no meterage on it again, it's whatever a good size kick is, and we know our other umpire should be there, they'll be in a better position than what we'll be in. So most of the time, it's every large kick. If the kick goes halfway between the two, it'll be a hole. You will keep it and push down with play. But every time it's a full-size kick, and don't get into the habit of looking at your other umpire, because if you look away from the play and look away from the contest, you can miss free kicks. So what you have to do is trust that that other umpire will be a kick away, and then you can hand over while you're still keeping an eye on play. Yeah, kicking to forward 50, definitely. We always want to have a second umpire sitting down in the 50, ready for that kick to come down, because it's very difficult to chase that football down and still be side on. There's a good chance you might miss that important free kick. I think it's the last one. Yeah, so set shot. We've got a set shot on goal. Got our number one umpire in position there. He's set the mark. He's staying 10 metres away in our protected area. Our number two umpire is sitting nice and deep. Why is he sitting down deep? Why is it important to be there and not further up or further in the middle of the field? Yeah, good view of the square in case there's a contest, exactly. So we don't know how far the player is going to kick. You can have a good idea based on their size. Sometimes we don't know if the foot is going to go through for a goal or a behind, or if it's going to drop short. If there's any doubt at any stage, or where you've set up, so if we're number one umpire there, if we've set up and we can't run into the square before the footy lands, then we need that second umpire down deep. So 9 times out of 10, if they're kicking in and they're about a kick's distance away, you're not sure if it's going to land or not, we're going to make sure we've got that second umpire further down. So he's either going to come from further up the field and tap through, or he's going to move down, and we're going to have number one moving up, and he's going to take control of the mark. We'll have number two down, ready for that kick, just in case it drops short. He's side on. He's in that position. He can see that important free kick. And then everyone's happy. What do we think about that? Set mark was close to the goal. Yeah, so obviously, once again, it's depending on age group and kicking ability. So if it's close enough that you're confident you can get side on if it drops short, then it's okay to not have that second umpire. So if you're fast enough to run 30 metres and still stay side on for that land when the footy lands, then that's fine. But if you're not going to get there in time, you need that second umpire. Obviously, it changes. So if you're doing senior football and you've got to kick 30 metres out, it's not going to drop short. So you don't have to worry about that. In junior footy, there's a good chance it could. So it's always beneficial to have that second set of eyes down there. Even if it goes through for a goal, there's no issues with it. There's no problems with it. It's all right having a second umpire there for it to go through and nothing happen. That's fine. At least they're in that position just in case.
Awesome work. Any final questions?
Yeah, I think that's what do we got? Yeah, so just answered what you said there, Tom, was about how do you decide? You've got to make that decision about if you think the kick's going to drop short or not.
Brilliant work. Awesome. Well, there's nothing else. On behalf of everyone, Alex, we all want to say a massive thank you to you and jump in the chat and thank Alex for that session. If you
No
can, I think
worries.
that was really,
Thanks,
really
everyone, for
well
jumping
run.
on.
Yeah, outstanding and very, very informative, mate. So well done.
Yeah, I know there was a lot in there. If there's anything anyone needs clarification on, I'm sure you can either send a message to Sam or myself, and we can go through something more with that if you would like.
Yep, perfect. Ken, did you raise your hand there? No, all good, all good. Alex, well done for everyone who's jumped on. Great work. This session was recorded, so we'll get that recording out in the coming days for anyone that might want to go back over it. I'll also send these presentations through that Alex has run through with your coaches as well. So if you ever want to get it off the coaches or talk through it at training, if you're heading to training, that would be great. Otherwise, thank you everybody for jumping on board. Thank you again, Alex, for running the session. That was outstanding. And we'll run a session in 2 weeks' time again. Where hopefully we'll have Alex available again and we'll go through a bit more detail. We may send through some vision prior to the session as well. Just to have a look at it. So for anyone that wants to stay on a little bit and ask a question they might have, feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you everyone for jumping online.
Thank you.
All good to go now.
All good to go now. Harry, well done.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank you. That was really good.
Good job, Opal. Did you
No
have
worries.
a good time at the schools carnival?
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Awesome. Good
Yeah,
work.
I'm doing on Thursday. I'm doing like the little kids one.
It's at
Is that-
Maroochydore, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Good job.
See ya. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.
Feel free to finish the recording too. Alex, if you get the chance.
Yeah.